Hey guys, you are on the most mystical channel, Mr. Creepy Depp. Today I'm going to tell you 3 true Halloween horror stories. Huge request, subscribe to my channel and put a like under this video. This will give me the opportunity to tell longer stories for you. Thank you all for your support and enjoy watching. My name is Jacob Wheeler, a ghost tour guide in the not-so-sleepy town of Hollow Creek. On October 31st, Halloween night, all my carefully crafted stories of resident spirits took a disconcerting turn towards reality. As the night's chill, painted under an ominous moon, set in, I was ready to share the gruesome tales of Hollow Creek to a group of eager tourists, thrill-seekers, and non-believers alike. Our first stop was the dilapidated manor on Wraith Lane, the fearsome account of the long-dead Lady Mansfield who was rumored to still wander the halls. As the wind whipped around us, pulling at our costumes, I stood before the group silhouetted against the haunting manor and began to narrate, my voice low and rhythmic. On nights just like this one, Lady Mansfield, cheated of her love and life, returns, seeking vengeance. As if on cue, a gust of icy wind seemed to shriek through the dead branches of the nearby trees, eliciting a thrill of terror from my audience. A perfect start. Or so I thought. Just as I was reaching the climax of the tale, a wailing sound echoed from the manor. Not the wind. I've heard that too many times to mistake it. But something that sounded eerily like a woman crying. There was a stillness among the group. A collective gasp held in as the wailing grew louder. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. This was a theatrical effect I didn't arrange for. A light then appeared in the topmost window of the manor, soft and fleeting, moving around as if someone were walking with a candle. Lady Mansfield's long, closed, dark home was arguably coming alive in front of our widened eyes. "Part of the show?" one of the tourists asked, her voice shaking. I shook my head faintly, my eyes transfixed on the spectral display. I had never before encountered something this authentic. As I hesitated, the ornate front doors of the manor creaked open slowly. The tour group stumbled back as a figure emerged, a woman clothed in the fashion of centuries past. She floated toward us with a sorrowful face eerily lit by the moonlight. I could see our group's reflection in her tearful, empty eyes. She extended her hand, beseeching, crying out in a language long lost to time, her spectral figure flickering like a haunted nightmare. I could feel a cold wave of sorrow emanating from her, a sense of utter despair that left us frozen. Before we could react, she turned, her gaze shifting to the top window as if called, and drifted back into the manor, the heavy doors groaning shut behind her. The night returned to its earlier still silence. Motion returned to the petrified tourists only as their trembling whispers began to fill the quiet. Their pale faces, I'm sure, mirrored my own. Hollow Creek had taken a turn for the terrifyingly real, and a frisson of fear raced down my spine as I contemplated revealing the darker secrets this town held. The next parts of our tour were supposed to be tales, crafted legends, but after this, I couldn't be so sure. This was only the start, and I had a feeling it was about to be a Halloween night none of us would ever forget. Shaken but more than a little intrigued, I gathered the group and walked on, our steps echoing through Hollow Creek's cobblestone roads. I glanced back at the manor. It stood imposingly silent, the solemn lady's sorrow still lingering in the air. Next on our haunt, the Hollow Creek Cemetery, the resting place for our town's founder, Jeremiah Copperfield. As the tale goes, his headstone, proud and prominent among the rest, was said to mysteriously change its inscription under the Halloween moon, a foretelling of the worst fate to befall a resident in the new year. Yet as we gathered around the headstone, our breaths collectively held, we found no cryptic prophecy. Instead, the stone was upturned, its cavity that housed Copperfield's body, open and empty. A hole, dark and chilling, stared back at us where the mortal remains of Jeremiah Copperfield should have been. That muffled gasp arose from the group. Our eyes searched each other's in the bluish moonlight, and a shared understanding passed between us. The ghoulish tales of Hollow Creek were no longer tales. "Just a prank, right?" questioned Tom, a town local who'd joined the tour on a dare. I doubted it, but for the sake of the group's sanity, I let them believe that. Unexpected happenings soon became an alarming trend for the night. The town's central well that was said to echo with the weeping of a heartbroken maiden. Yes, Hollow Creek was quite the cheerless place. Instead, emitted a deep, strange laughter, cold and haunting. The creepy laughter grew louder until it felt as though it had swallowed us whole before it abruptly ceased, leaving us in an even more disconcerting silence. Our final stop, a visit to the abandoned church on the town's outskirts, witnessed the most unsettling happening of all. We were met by an impromptu gathering of specters, translucent and wispy, their ghostly faces twisted in an unsettling blend of joy and torment. Our group stood at the threshold of the church, each one wrestling with disbelief and terror, watching the spirits whirl in an unholy dance to a melody that wasn't there, or perhaps one that only they could hear. Were the cursed townsfolk celebrating or burning in their own spectral torment? I couldn't tell. As dawn approached, marking the end of our Halloween ordeal, Hollow Creek returned to its slumber, its ghosts retreating into the shadows. The sun's first rays bathed the town, casting away lingering fears. I concluded my tour, looking at the dazed faces before me. The skeptics didn't laugh, the thrill-seekers found no joy, and the non-believers were overwhelmed. I walked my shuddering guests back to town, the line between storyteller and participant forever blurred. The legends of Hollow Creek had taken life a little too literally. Costumes were shed, as were some illusions. Halloween had come alive, and for all of us, it had been a night we realized we could do with a little less real Halloween. From that night onward, Hollow Creek's tales could no longer be dismissed as mere folklore. The veil had been pierced, ghastly reality exposed. And my Halloween tours. They sold out year after year, but with an added warning. For the thrill seekers and the curious, remember, the spirits of Hollow Creek don't take kindly to uninvited guests. As a collector of antiques and oddities, I never considered the chance of anything genuinely unsettling crossing my path. That's until I picked up the peculiar glass mask from a Halloween boot sale at the back end of nowhere. Reflective but translucent, it had been a mesmerizing find. Its ethereal visage wouldn't go unnoticed in my display case. Purchasing the mask without a second thought, who would have guessed this innocuous trinket would shape the most unhinging Halloween of my life? My job kept me traveling most of the time, so I really looked forward to a quiet All Hallows Eve at home, sharing enchanting tales of my finds with friends. Everyone always loved a whiff of mystery around such objects, adding spice to our annual Halloween gathering. As night fell, my Victorian-era house brimming with eclectic antiques became an eerie haunt for my costumed companions. My newest acquisition, the glass mask, intoxicated everyone's curiosity. Its backstory, unknown, its previous owners, a mystery. Surrendering to my friend's dare, I donned the mask. The room fell silent as the mask adhered to my face with an unnatural chill. My vision transformed, bending and twisting. I was overwhelmed by vivid, glimpsed scenes. Sprawling orange pumpkin fields illuminated by a twilight moon, distant laughter of children trick-or-treating, and an old wooden cabin tucked away in the shrouds of an ancient, gnarled forest. Suddenly, a growing murmur pulled me back from this impromptu journey. My guests' voices had become agitated, concerned. I reached to remove the mask but froze. I couldn't touch it. The mask, in merging with my skin, had become a part of me. Panic, fear, they washed over me like a wave. The faces mingling in the house distorted, their festive costumes hideous and horrifying to my altered sight. The comforting walls of my home had taken an ominous hue. Shadows dripped like ink, pooling around corners, haunting the portraits that lined the halls. In the chaos, I saw my terrified reflection in a grand mirror, but horrification gripped me. It was not my face beneath the mask. Twisted and mangled, the grotesque countenance leered back at me, the unseen eyes within the glass mask pulsating with a malevolent red glow. The struggle began. I tried to tear the mask off, but each pull only incited searing pain as if ripping my skin off. Meanwhile, the mask whispered tales of centuries past, tales of curses, betrayal, and malevolent spirits trapped within its essence. Its eerie power grew stronger with each stifled sob that escaped me, every breath of fear it tasted. As sanity threatened to slip away, I collapsed, lying on the cold floor amidst a blurred cacophony of frightened screams, wails of concern from my friends. Suddenly, the horrifying images ceased. A moment of truth had arrived. I was alone, in total darkness, the mask whispering to me of a solution. But a price needed to be paid for my freedom. Is it a price I'd be willing to pay? And would I ever escape this terrifying Halloween nightmarish grip? Summoning the remnants of my determination, I pushed aside the crippling fear, focusing on the mask's whispers. It told me of its creation, crafted by a scorned witch during the Dark Ages as the ultimate retribution against the lover who betrayed her. The mask held a part of her vengeful spirit, seeking to escape and enact her fury never-endingly, but it could be pacified by repentance. The price of freedom, the mask intimated chillingly, is the acceptance of guilt and regret. Though these may not have been my sins, I was willing to pay. With conviction, I apologized for the lover's betrayal, the pain inflicted, and the heart that was broken. Abruptly, the mask's whispers stopped. The room started melting away, paving the return to the Halloween-filled living room in my antique house. The strange reflection was replaced by my own terrified face in the mirror. Around me, my friends looked on in a mixture of relief and dismay. The tension evaporated as the glass mask fell from my face, detaching itself as if it had never been a part of me. Bending down, I picked it up with trembling hands. Supernaturally chilled no longer, it was just a simple, lifeless piece of glass. The haunted scenes, the oppressive, frightening visions, and the contained spectral rage, they were gone, leaving behind only the memory of a Halloween night that none of us would ever forget. Haunted by the experience, I decided the mask held no place in my collection. I buried it deep within my backyard, hoping its tale truly ended. That night, I lay in bed, irrevocably altered, looking at the silhouettes playing across my ceiling. Curiosity, once my companion, had shown me a dark side that Halloween. Now, every time the specter of curiosity rises to drag me into unfamiliar territories, I remember the cold, cursed glass mask and the price I almost paid. As Halloween comes around again, I find myself sipping hot apple cider, recounting the frightful tale to my wide-eyed guests, each of us glancing at the darkened corners of the room warily, and surely clutching our masks a little bit tighter. It was Halloween night 2023. A lingering chill had descended, creating a compelling shroud as I stood on Shadow Street. Every neighboring home was a set of glowing pumpkins and ghostly curtains, all save for one, the house at the end of the street that had long stood abandoned. For as long as I could remember, whispers had seeped through the cracks of our community, circling around the centuries-old mansion. Stories of strange sightings, hushed voices, and chilling occurrences had earned it the unsavory reputation. Yet the allure was undeniable, especially on this fog-ridden moonlit evening. Fueled by a problematic mix of curiosity and bravery, I decided to fill the gaping hole in the street's spirit. I was to carve a pumpkin and place it on the forsaken porch of the house, turning the fear upside down. Armed with a jack-o'-lantern, I started for the house, my heart thudding louder than the crunching autumn leaves underfoot. As I mounted the warped steps, creaks and groans emanated from the old wooden boards. A sudden gust of wind howled through the skeletal trees, making me jump. Nervously chuckling at my own reaction, I placed the jack-o'-lantern on the porch, its flickering light casting eerie reflections on the decaying walls. Turning to leave, I spotted a strange movement from one of the upstairs windows. A ghostly silhouette contrasted against the dim background. turning my Halloween bravado into ice. Unfathomable cold wrapped around me, like an unseen specter had drawn in breath. I tried to tell myself it was just an illusion, a trick or treat of light and shadows, but my petrified heart disagreed. Against all rational thought, I found myself busting through the ancient door. It creaked open, revealing dusty, cobweb-ridden corners and a carpet that seemed untouched by time. The strange silhouette had pulled me in, and a vortex of chilling intrigue pushed me further. As I hovered through the labyrinth-like interior, each groan of the house and whisper of wind sent jitters down my spine. I was drawn towards an old staircase, each step a lurch into the unknown. That's when it happened. A blood-curdling shriek echoed from the rooms above, ricocheting off the walls and piercing the silence. Every nerve stood on edge as I hesitated, debating a rash retreat or a morbid push forward. My body, half guided by adrenaline and half by primal fear, pulled me up and into the abyss. Finally, I stood at a doorway. A dull glow seeped from underneath, casting long, ominous shadows that danced and coiled. The shrieks had ceased, replaced by an eerie lull. Reaching out, I touched the cold knob. It twisted easily under my grip, almost as if inviting me in. And then I opened the door. The door creaked open with a sound that cut through the silence, making my heart leap to my throat. A flickering, feeble light spilled outwards from a single candle on a dilapidated desk. But that wasn't what held my gaze. Against the far wall, a mirror stood tall, covered in ages of dust except for one spot inexplicably kept clean. It was there I saw it, the silhouette from the window. The figure was tall and lean, shrouded in darkness, crafted of fear itself, yet somewhat familiar. I squinted, stepped closer. With each inch forward, my heart hammered louder, echoing the tick-tock of the broken clock on the wall. Then it moved. As an ethereal hand reached towards me from out of the mirror, I stumbled backward, a scream lodged in my throat. But as I watched in disbelief, the hand holding an object, something I'd seen before, a key, my family's key. It was the small bronze one I had seen my father keep in his drawer, the key to our family's old antique chest. Missing since he'd passed away, I never could unlock that chest where he'd kept the family's secrets. As fear gave way to curiosity, I found myself stepping forward once again. Keeping my mouth shut, I reached out and took the key. The moment our hands, mine fleshy and warm, theirs ghostly and cold, touched, a rush of images flooded my mind. Scenes of my ancestors danced before my eyes. A story untold began to play. Tales of the noble, courageous acts of my predecessors, of the house I was standing in, once a hospitable residence left deserted after a bitter family conflict. The figure then pointed at me, and in that moment I understood. It wasn't a ghost story that has been haunting Shadow Street. It was a story of lost legacy, faded connections, my family's history begging to be revealed. It sought a listener, a seer, a bearer of the truth. In me, it found one. Exiting the house, I felt a profound connection with generations past, a sense I wasn't alone. I had a legacy, a history that needed to be known. Keeping the key tight in my hand, I knew my journey had only just begun. It was not a horrifying end to my Halloween. It was a mysterious start to the legacy I was about to unearth. As I walked away, I glanced back. To my surprise, the house that once stood dark now basked in the moonlight. It wasn't a house of horrors. It was a beacon on Shadow Street, a monument to my bloodline. A faint smile drew upon my face, the scent of mystery hanging in the air. This year, Halloween didn't conclude with candy and costumes. It gifted me the chance to bring light to shadows, to change the whispers on Shadow Street from haunted tales to the narration of my family saga. And perhaps by next Halloween, the house at the end of the street wouldn't stand abandoned any longer. That's all for today. I hope my stories made an impression on you. If so, don't forget to put a like under this video and subscribe to the channel. In the next videos, you are waiting for the most mystical stories from around the world. Do not miss. See you in the new video.